I will preface this video by warning that it contains True Detective Season 1 spoilers. I don't want to bother anyone, so I'll go ahead and warn you about the first season even though it's been over a decade. The fact that there is only one more episode of True Detective Season 4, and that we will soon learn who killed Annie Kay and the other researchers has made me nostalgic for the first season. And the feeling I had as we watched the Dora Lange case progress to its conclusion, with the revelation in the penultimate episode that Errol Childress was responsible for the gruesome murders we witnessed and had been driving Rust Cole mad. A few weeks ago, I revised Season 1 in which I explored Rust's mind. However, I felt compelled to address the heinous murderer Errol Childress, his background and motivations, and the show's deft handling of pure evil, namely, its decision to withhold the killer's identity until the very end. Let us examine Errol Childress's heinous atrocities by diving into this film, and, if you're brave enough, entering the Yellow King cult's underground. First, we'll look into what drives Errol Childress. Among Childress's most disturbing aspects is the mystery surrounding his motivations for the nearly 2 decades-long string of murders that began in 1995 and continued until 2012. A wide variety of killers' motivations are depicted in various media. Love may be what drives them, abhor or in a sexual way. While it may appear that sexual motivation was the driving force for Childress's murders, there was actually something far more sinister at work in her head that led her to go on a killing rampage. Childress was an integral aspect of the Tuttle religion, which was practiced by Heister as part of their ritual worship of the Yellow King. The Tuttle family engaged in this practice across Louisiana for many years. By 2012, Errol was the sole remaining member of the Tuttle family. Since his previous allies, including Ledoux, were no longer in his life, he was left to rely solely on his deeply held views, which were deeply embedded in him. A demonstration that his belief in Heister and his desire to inflict terror persist despite the cult's diminished status. The fact that Errol Childress was born to Ted Childress, the kid of an extramarital affair between an unidentified woman and Sam Tuttle, the rumored former cult leader, means that he had no knowledge of any difference in his upbringing. His upbringing was marked by abuse, most likely at the hands of his father, and he may have been a victim of the cult's atrocities. He threatened to punish all human beings the same way they treated him, severely. This demonstrated that his treatment of others was reminiscent of his own childhood experiences. In addition to teaching him the horrible things he would do to Dora Lange and the other missing women and children, this is probably where he got the noticeable scars on his face. It was horrifying enough to learn that Childress tortured and murdered people. It was even worse to know that he took advantage of Hurricane Katrina to abduct and murder individuals because fewer people were reported missing during that period. This demonstrates that his killings were not simply motivated by a desire to sacrifice, but also that he took pleasure in them, showing a new reason behind his acts, and that he saw the fun and games in what he was doing. Assuming he evaded capture, Errol would have undoubtedly persisted in his murderous ways into the future. No reasonable person could have expected him to voluntarily cease killing after over 20 years. The expression on the boy's face as he painted in the classroom suggested that he may have been planning to target the youngster as his next victim. The evolution of Childress on the program Errol Childress was a fantastic nemesis in the first season because, while being the primary villain who tormented Rust and Marty's minds, we only saw him 3 times and he likely had a few minutes of screen time total. His first appearance occurred at the end of episode 3, when he was shown for almost 2 minutes. His subsequent appearances were in the penultimate episode where he was featured briefly and the finale where he had a more significant role. Throughout 7 of the 8 episodes, the show subtly introduced us to this terrifying individual by using eerie titles for him, leaving him shrouded in mystery and imbuing him with an air of the otherworldly. To let our imaginations run wild trying to picture this terrible murderer. This led us to subconsciously associate the image with the ritualistic murders that were occurring. He had several aliases, such as the Scarred Man, the Spaghetti Monster with green ears, and the Monster of the Thick Grass. There were eerie tales associated with each of these names. The fact that he was referred to as a monster and a beast demonstrated that people did not perceive him as human. Because our minds are notoriously dangerous when faced with blank slates, those descriptions caused us to wander aimlessly, trying to picture this creature in our heads. We were practically transported to the same world as Rust and Marty as the show kept us guessing and making us picture a monster after all. That's what the villain was, so we felt like we were a part of the action, too. It seems like it would be a huge challenge to draw our attention to a murderer who isn't even human. Yet True Detective pulled it off admirably with Errol. Even though Childress had a human body, he lived a human life. He was a wild animal at heart. Also, unlike the average person, he lacked a set of core beliefs. He had a relationship with his half-sister, lived in a filthy house, and spoke to his dead father while he was bound and gagged. That was the ideal introduction to the character on its own. We saw him for what he was, a subhuman, a monster, and everything in between the second we lay eyes on him and spent any amount of time with him in the series finale. The fact that we only ever saw the killer's actions as ruins is another way the show nailed Childress, which contributed to the mystery around his identity. The first season's shocking treatment of Dora Lange as an exhibition piece rather than a victim of murder or a homicide proved unsettling. It made us ponder about the mentality and personality of the killer right away. With the presence of the spiral symbol, devil catches, and paintings that would frequently emerge at various spots, the killer became even more eerie and unsettling due to their nefarious nature, which made us feel very uneasy. The wrongdoings that Errol did, concerning the atrocities perpetrated by Childress, the exact number of casualties is a mystery, but Rust found 3 skulls and other bones as he followed him into the labyrinth. Not only that, but we also know he was the killer in 2012. He may have been a witness to the murders of Marie Fontenot and Dora Lange, as well as his father. Thus, we have a minimum of 7. It is absolutely unknown how many people he murdered, considering the frequent disappearance of children across the state and rumors that he capitalized on people's fear of the unknown during Hurricane Katrina. But there's no denying the amount. He may have harmed some people yet spared others' lives. Since the cult was responsible for so much destruction during that time, it's clear that his acts had far-reaching consequences. The first 8 episodes of True Detective made up a season that, in my opinion, will never be topped by any subsequent season of the same name. Truly, it was flawless. Everything about it, the characters, the plot, and the way it pushed us to use our imaginations to conjure up feelings of terror was terrifying. On top of that, it gave us an inaccurate impression of Errol Childress. There has never been an enemy or villain like him. For a long time, his actions were central to the show, but neither the investigators nor we noticed them. Considering how brief the event was, I don't think many others could manage it. However, this particular one accomplished just that, and it flourished as a result. As a monster and a subhuman creature, Childress was eerie, wicked, and shattered. In the little screen time he got, Glenn Flesher delivered a superb performance as the villain, and I challenge you to find a more egregious example of pure evil in True Detective. And with that, I leave you. Select the card in the upper right corner to see other True Detective videos. You may find my coverage of Season 4 in the corner or on the channel if you're interested in seeing it. In conclusion, my Letterboxd page is the place to go if you want to watch my thoughts on recent films that didn't get a dedicated video. Here you may see my real-time ratings for the newest releases. Is True Detective's first season your favorite? Please subscribe and feel free to leave a remark below. I'll run into you again.